I
Sarah Adwoa Sarfo,
swear by the Almighty God
swear by the Almighty God
that the evidence I shall give before this committee
that the evidence I shall give before this committee
touching the matter in issue shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
So help me God.
Honorable Sarah Adwoa Sarfo, this is your third term as a member of Parliament. The last Parliament, you're the Vice Chairman of this committee. You've been a member of several committees. You've been a deputy leader of this House. And you've been the chair of Women's Caucus. So I see that many of your members have come and say they are coming to support you, give you moral support. That's nice to hear. Is there anything else you wish to tell us before we ask you questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I think you've given a bit of my employment history. Just to add that I speak English and I'm conversant with Ghana. Again, I'm a Christian, and the educational background, it's all spelled out in the CV. I hail from Ashanti Bekwai, and so Mr. Chairman is my MP.
Kindly add that you are a Bekwai citizen in the diaspora.
I'm the daughter of the well-known philanthropist, Apostle Dr. Kojo Sarfo.
Is that supposed to influence us, or?
I know Mr. Speaker has a soft spot. Mr. Speaker, I did my national service with the Legal Aid Board. I did some internship at Columbia Law, Marlow Chambers. I also worked with the Office of the Attorney General for the District of Columbia in Washington, D.C. I was the founding legal officer of PPA. I worked with Zoe Achia and Co. And
Honorable former leader, we want to save time, so you know all this. Yes, so now we will start asking you questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Honorable Zoe, ask your former leader the question you have on women and gender.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, Honorable Minister Designate. My first question will be on human trafficking. I think we are all familiar, we know the issues surrounding human trafficking and human trafficking rings that facilitate this business. In the event that you are confirmed as the Minister for Gender and Social Protection, what will be your focus? What plans would you have to work with the other agencies such as the Interior Ministry to aim to curb this trafficking that ends up sending our young people abroad into unknown charters?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman, Human trafficking, I know that this House has the Human Trafficking Act of 2005 that the ministry is working with. We also have the Human Trafficking Prohibition, Protection and Reintegration of Trafficked Persons Regulations of 2015, which are all legal frameworks within which to deal with the matters. Mr. Chair, when I get to the ministry, I will engage the Department of Human Trafficking, which I know exists, for proper briefing on matters relating to that. And then I can proceed on the right strategies and the right policies also to continue with what has already been chalked as a ministry. Thank you.
Thank you. My second question is on hawking. Hawking. Yeah. And I'm sure we are familiar with it on our street, especially in our main cities of Accra and Kumasi, and especially in the case of Accra. All you have to do is travel from Flagstaff House towards 37 Military Hospital. And there they are, hawking young people, some of the ladies with babies on their backs, young guys carrying. When they started, they used to hawk ice cream, chocolate. These days, they hawk everything, you know, and the issue really is, every time I drive around there and I see them charging on vehicles, I've asked myself, what is the position of the law in the event that a motorist mistakenly knocks one of these people down? What happens? How are they protected? How are motorists protected? Is there anything that we can do to keep these people off the streets, to help keep motorists safe? What will you do as the Gender and Protection, Social Protection Minister, if you get there, to help us deal with this phenomenon?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I share the concern of the Honourable Member, and I know that it's a problem for motorists, and not even for the motorists alone, also for the hawkers themselves. And you find out that most of them happen to be either young children who are on the streets hawking. And it has a link with streetism as well. I know the ministry has done some work on streetism and how to keep our children off the street. I will liaise with the appropriate committees that they set up and the work that they've done, abreast myself with it, and then proceed, because I believe in continuity. On the issue of hawking, I think it overlaps with the Ministry of Labour and Employment as well. So when it comes to that, when people want to actually sell on the streets, I think I will need some interministerial engagement also with that ministry. Thank you.
Thank you. My final question is on school feeding. School feeding, beautiful government program of intervention to support kids in school, but lately it's been dealt with a lot of problems. The quality of the food and the processes leading to contract awards, who gets what contract, who cooks the food. There's just a whole lot about it. What will you do if you become the minister to re-engineer this beautiful program so that Ghanaian kids, school-going children, can benefit from the real intentions of the implementation of this program? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I strongly believe the school feeding program as one of the social interventions or social protection programs has a purpose for which it was introduced, which is also to make sure that we have our children served meals in school, hot meals, to keep them in school, more especially with the needy students. Mr. Chair, we must admit as a country that the intention and purpose for this scheme is good, but we have some lapses within it that we ought to look at as a nation. And as a parliament, and as the Gender Committee of Parliament, when I'm given the nod, I will engage this House and the committee as well to see how these lapses can be streamlined properly. Be it NPP, NDC, we all have to accept that there are challenges. Sometimes there are intermediaries, even in between the caterers, which compromises even on the quality of food that is being served to these children, which is not the ultimate purpose for introducing the scheme. So when I'm giving the nod, I'll engage further and we'll all streamline things to make it better. Thank you.
Yes. Very well. Mrs. Njari.
Congratulations, Honorable Nominee. I've been reading an article and a research put together by the National Democratic International Affairs, Why Women in Politics. And their statistics show that women parliamentarians are great because it doesn't matter which political divide they come from, they come together to ensure that the welfare of women and children are catered for. Can you briefly give us the assurance that when we give you the nod, you will make sure that issues of LEAP expansion, affirmative actions, the laws that we need to pass are all done, just briefly, to give us the comfort that once you are giving the nod, you make sure that all these matters affecting women and children are taken care of.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I give my utmost assurance to the committee. Thank you.
Finally, I wish you well. Go out there and make women proud. Go and make Akotoja in 2004 proud. And don't be minister for MPP women. Go there and be Ghana's minister for gender and social protection. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Honorable Karaga.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Honorable Sarfo, I congratulate you on your nomination. A quick one on witches' camps. So you have been briefed about the proliferation of witches' camps in the country. I have 2 witches' camps in my constituency. And it's, for me, a blot on the conscience of all of us that we still have something called witches' camp. What would you do about these witches' camps? And sometimes violations of the rights of these alleged witches. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, if I'm given the nod, what I will first do is to engage and visit some of the camps and engage these alleged witches. I will further engage the traditional leaders and opinion leaders in these areas to get a very clear picture of what indeed ought to be done. That is not to say that the ministry hasn't done anything. I chanced on some documents which indicated that in Kambaga, which camp, for instance, there are 600 inmates. When they were engaged, only one was prepared to come back home. So I believe that a rebranding of these camps, because as far as the women are concerned, they have found family in these camps. And so I will engage them further.
Minister nominee, a rebranding of the camp, which is camp. So your policy will be to rebrand them.
I know that
it has to do with, you have a background in human rights. It has to do with infractions of human rights, that they are being held hostage because of some people's cultural and social beliefs. So when you use the word rebrand, Are you going to promote the detention of supposed witches?
Mr. Chair, definitely not. I indicated that attempts to withdraw these women has proven difficult in the past. That is why I believe that another and a novel approach to dealing with the matter would be more prudent. So if they see it as homes and the ministry supports them with the necessary social amenities that is expected of a state, they are given food, they are put on leave, and they are given clothing, I believe that that negative branding as a witch camp will be taken away. And the women also, I intend to go through with them some education on the need for them to also know that these abuses meted on them are not legal, and they can speak out and report to the police as need be. But I think the approach we've used in the past hasn't worked, and so I will look at a new approach, which is more collaborative. Thank you.
Nilante, you haven't spoken today.
Honorable nominee, please, what is your take on surrogacy, and what will you do to enhance or possibly eliminate it from our system?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I believe that surrogacy is a new area that we need to look at as a country and properly regulate it as such. Because in other Western worlds or advanced worlds, it's well regulated to the extent that every step of the procedure is legal and has to go through the proper processes. When we come here, we don't have that. So it will be an area that I will look at, and I'll engage the honorable member. I don't think it should be cast out completely from our society, because it is a novel and a more advanced scientific way of having women also be mothers in their natural way, if I'm allowed to use that word. And so I think if it's properly regulated, it will help us as a country. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, congratulations. And may I refer you to page 161 of our manifesto. And I'm sure you don't have a copy, but I'll read it. Okay. We will also, in line with our social development philosophy, ensure the enactment and operationalization of the Aging Bill, as well as the Affirmative Action Bill. What are some of the things you would want to see in this proposed bill that you will be ushering into this House? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The Aging Bill and the Affirmative Action Bill, if I'm given the nod, would be one thing that I would ensure that we get it passed. I know the Affirmative Action Bill has been in and out of this House. Having been in this House and having engaged as a leader, I know that I can engage this House much better to ensure that this law is passed. The Aging Bill also is very important. Not to add on, but there are other bills also that I would be introducing into this House. So I think that what I personally would want to be seen in these laws is not my priority. What I think should be our priority is that we are the representatives of the people, and as a House, when we propose and bring it on the floor, through debate and consideration, there will be additions and there will be deletions, and make the law the best for all. all of us in this country. Thank you.
Gisela?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
I mentioned a name, Gisela.
Oh,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable nominee, congratulations. I just have a question for you on orphans and orphanages, and whether you think that the legal framework that has been established is adequate and contemporary for the orphanages that we have in the country today. I think that I just want your view and what you think you could do to reform it if necessary, and what practical steps you could take to make sure that the children that are in the orphanages, even though they depend on charity and so on and so forth, they still have the framework that will protect them and their rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I would say that the existence of orphanages in our country has served numerous purposes for children who otherwise would have been on the streets. And these are usually run by humanitarians and philanthropists, charitable organizations. When I get to the ministry, or when I'm given the nod, I will review the existing framework and see where we need to tighten up to make it more regulated, more modern, more human rights sensitive, and not be used as a tool to extort as well. So these are some of the things that when I get there and I'm briefed properly on the existing ones and the challenges, I'll be able to put forward the right strategies to move it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. My last question. Honorable nominee, what should we expect from you should you get a nod in 4 years, at the end of 4 years, in case your president does not reshuffle you? What should we expect at the end of 4 years? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. The reshuffle part, okay. Mr. Chair, I would want to leave a legacy behind. And this legacy I want to leave behind is that the Almighty God uses me as a tool, like He used powerful women in the Bible, like Deborah, like Esther, to impact on the lives of many. This ministry is a ministry that is dealing with the most vulnerable in our societies. This opportunity will be an opportunity for me to impact on many lives positively as much as I can, and that is what I want to be remembered for. Thank you. Male lives as well, not female lives alone. Thank you, Honorable.
All right.
Wonderful.
I gotta go first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, just to place on record that the nominee and I were mates at the law school, so I'd like to seize the opportunity to congratulate her. Congrats, honorable nominee. My question has to do with LEAP, the Livelihood Empowerment Support Program. That program is a social protection policy which is designed to alleviate extreme poverty amongst our people. But the program has been faulted on grounds of the methods deployed in selecting beneficiaries. I'd like to know what you would do to inject some equity into the selection process when you get the nod. The last concern or issue is what you intend to do to expand the policy to cover as many of the people who fall below the poverty line as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, LEAP, as the Honourable Member rightly said, is a social protection tool. And what assurance I will give him is that when I get to the ministry, I know that there's a department for the Ghana National Housing Registry, and they collate all data on beneficiaries who come under the LEAP program. If there's the need to enhance that data collection process, after the briefing, I will take that direction. And I would liaise also with the Ministry of Communication and Digitization to make sure that we go digital if it is not already gone digital, because that is the way we can properly have people who are entitled to be on. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. I would want to find out what you would do to protect victims of crime. In working in that area, I've realized that there are a lot of young females who are either raped or defiled, and at the point that they need support for either medical care, sociological or psychological support, it's very difficult for them. There are certain investigators who will demand money before they take you to the clinic to do medicals, and so on and so forth. Also, what happens is that in a practical situation where I have represented some victims, after the perpetrators have been convicted and sentenced, the children are left with no protection whatsoever. What would you do as a Gender and Children Protection Minister in the protection of victims of violent crime?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. That's a very important matter that my colleague has touched on. Victims of rape and defilement, when I'm made the minister, I would make sure that the proper policies are put in place to ensure that the law is implemented. Because I know that we have the Domestic Violence Act, we have the Criminal Code, we have the Criminal Code which has been amended, and all these acts are acts of criminality. The issue of having a medical report even before you proceed with the rape matter in court usually deters even the victims from reporting because of their backgrounds as being vulnerable. So I believe that when I get to the ministry, some work has been done. I don't want to preempt anything, but I'm sure when I get there, I'll be properly briefed, and then where it is now, we'll see how we can support with these payments. But I know that the law even states that even when the state has paid, there should be a way that the perpetrators will be fined even after their sentencing. So these are things that are sitting in our law books, and when I get there with the proper coordination and collaboration with the Ghana Police Service, I'm sure we'll be able to find a lasting solution. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Eslaus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's this congratulations, and I'd like to ask you a very vexed but pertinent issue, and would like to know what your thoughts are on it. The property rights of spouses. The 1992 Constitution indicated that a law should be passed to protect the rights of spouses upon dissolution of marriage. It came to this House in the 6th Parliament and was withdrawn for further consultations. It didn't make its way back in the 7th Parliament. Would you take steps to address the issues that made it difficult for its passage in the 6th Parliament and ensure that we make some headway to giving effect to the constitutional provision? And secondly, whether men should be encouraged to take paternity leave to assist their partners take care of newborn babies. Thank you.
Sorry, I want to understand you. The men should take paternity leave to assist their women on maternity leave. I see. Yes, Honorable Minister for Gender. Paternity leave to assist women in maternity leave.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I will start with the first question, which relates to Article 22 of the Constitution, which guarantees the property right of spouses, and the fact that this bill came before the floor, or came on the floor of Parliament and had to be withdrawn. Just as the affirmative action, there are a number of them that has come. I will give my honorable colleague the assurance that the whole House is expecting and the entire nation is expecting to hear that when I'm giving the nod, I would ensure that these laws are laid before the House, relayed, and for consideration and for the law to be passed. It is going to be one of my priorities. On the issue of paternity leave for men, I know that it's something that needs more engagement. Even at the mention of it here, I saw members, our male counterparts, rejecting and resisting it. So I would open it up for further discussion, but to place on record that I know it exists in other jurisdictions, like in Israel. I know that they have both paternity and maternity leave. But again, we have to regulate it so that the men will have to prove that there's a newborn. Otherwise, they'll go doing other things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very simple questions about lesbians, gay, bisexual, and transgender, and to pick your human rights brains. Are they human? Should they enjoy human rights? And will you provide social protection?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the issue of LGBT is an issue that, when mentioned, it creates some controversy. But what I want to say is that our laws are clear on such practices. It makes it criminal. Section 104 of the Criminal Code prohibits one from having unnatural carnal knowledge with another person. So on the issue of its criminality, it is non-negotiable. On the issue of our cultural acceptance and norms to these practices are also frowned upon. And so for me, these are two distinct clarity on the matter, and that is what I strongly stand for. Thank you.
You want to ask? Yes.
Mr. Chair, just a follow-up. What our colleague wanted to know from you, yes, you've stated the position of the law, but social protection was an aspect you wanted your view on. The law is clear, no doubt, but the law is there and social protection is another matter. He wants to know whether you have a view on that aspect.
Which part of social protection, if I may ask?
The nominee has given her view on the law, no doubt at all. But he wanted to know about the aspect of social protection, how you will react.
Mr. Chair.
Do you wish to add anything, Honorable, to the answer you've given already?
My answer, I think, has the utmost clarity of the intention for which it was spoken. Thank you.
Very well. Yes, Honorable Bilitova.
Most grateful, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have only 2 questions for the nominee. The first one will derive from her previous role. I observed from page 7 of the Honorable nominee's CV, she indicates that as Minister for Public Procurement, you were Chief Advisor to the President on procurement issues or matters. We have been on a campaign to find out details on the procurement processes leading to the airport $150 antigen test by Frontiers Healthcare Services Limited. Do you know the procurement processes involved, and have you cited a contract so far as that airport antigen test agreement is concerned?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, no, I haven't.
You haven't seen the contract, and you don't know the procurement processes too that was used as a Chief Procurement Advisor to the President?
Mr. Chair, as Chief Procurement Advisor to the President, I want to state on record that the Public Procurement Act, Act 663 of 2003, was not changed during my tenure as Minister of State for Public Procurement. So the supervisory minister, which is clearly stated in the law, is the Minister for Finance. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to come to social protection, which is the new portfolio. If God willing, this committee and the House approves your nomination, you will be in charge of. I am increasingly taking the view that this whole phenomenon of Kayaye, don't you think that the time has come for us as a country to just proscribe it, outlaw it? Because it really borders on human rights. It's very dehumanizing, and nobody deserves to go through what they do in this modern era, carrying human load on your head. I mean, the human head is not for carrying load. And if you see their conditions and what happens to them, even at night, they have no place to sleep and all of that. Don't you think we should just outlaw it and then pursue alternative livelihood measures for those who are engaged in that inhumane, activity, so that as a country we can be more forward-looking and get this scar on our conscience off? It's a view I'm increasingly taking. What are your thoughts on that?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the issue of Kayaye, as raised by the Honourable Member, is an issue and continues to be an issue that we live with. To sit here and prefer my opinion whether or not we should scrap it completely and migrate them onto a social protection scheme, Mr. Chair, will be a hasty opinion for me. What I would indulge the committee is, as soon as I'm given the nod and I get to the ministry, I will study previous works that has been done on the matter and consider the proposal by the honorable member and engage the entire House, including the Committee on Gender, to see how best collaboratively we can find a lasting solution to it. Thank you.
Very well. Honorable Sweeney. Very well. Yes, Reverend, then I'll come to leadership.
I'm grateful, Honorable Chair. Congratulations, Honorable Minister Designate. There have been concerns expressed by caterers providing school feeding program on non-payment of arrears. What would you do when given the nod to ensure that those concerns are addressed, and also to even further expand the program to include less endowed areas who are yearning to benefit from the program? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I previously stated, I'll reiterate it again. When I get to the ministry, I will look into these payments and the need for us to again streamline and tighten up certain things within that framework to make it better. And so I give the honorable member that assurance. Thank you.
All right, leadership now. Honorable Deputy Leader. Sorry, Honorable Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Why are you intimidating me? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, the nominee, the former Deputy Leader of this House, the former Vice Chair of this committee, and Mr. Chairman, on Halgram, I know she was recently blessed with a newborn baby. I would not want the baby to accuse us of keeping her long from taking food. I have a lot of concerns. I will discuss it with her. I will just wish her well. Thank you.
Yes, Vice Chair.
No question, my friend. Mr. Chair, in accord with his pleasure, I will not depart from that path he has chosen. Thank you.
Honorable Ranking Member.
Mr. Speaker, let me thank you and also use this opportunity to congratulate our colleague, the Honorable Adwoa Sarfo, who is transiting from Deputy Leader of the House to Minister responsible for gender and related matters. Mr. Speaker, I wish her well and trust that she would work to improve representation of women in public life in Ghana. But if I were to ask her, it's just for purposes of the record. When you go to Article 11, Article 174, Article 268, it all uses Parliament shall by two-thirds. Maybe let me just read one for your purposes. I'll go to 11, Article 11 of the Constitution, and it reads with the indulgence of Chair. I quote Article 11. It says, come into force at the expiration of 21 sitting days after being late, unless Parliament, before the expiration of the 21 days, announce the order, rule, or regulation by the votes of not less than two-thirds of all the members of Parliament. What's your legal arithmetic understanding of this.
Mr. Chair, I would say that my mathematics is not that good, but two-thirds of 275. My arithmetic is really bad, Mr. Chair. But 91, I'm told. So plus or minus 91. Plus or minus
91 is 1/3 according to you. Take your time.
2/3 will be 91.
2/3 of 275.
Or 275, yes. Mr. Chair, I have indicated my arithmetic is very.
Chairman, is noted. Chairman, my second question is, Minister, when you assume office, across the country, children have no access to play and recreational centers across the country, particularly in public schools, and lands dedicated for that purpose is not available. Part of the training of children and their socialization necessarily must include recreation. Would you provide policy leadership in that direction?
Exactly, Mr. Chair, I will do that. I give the committee that assurance. I know that recreation is another tool that can be used to enhance the well-being of our children, and not only children, the well-being of the aged as well. And when we all travel to the Western world, we see how they invest in parks, in recreational centers. So I strongly believe that already some work is being done in the ministry that when I get there, I'll be briefed and then continue from where they left off. But I strongly believe that every region should have at least a recreational facility, both for children and for the aged.
There are concerns about nursing homes, and you've just given us an assurance, but I want a definite assurance. Aged persons, many of them emotional distress, many of them sick. Will you lead in providing, for the first time in our history, an aged bill which will take care of the emotional and social concerns of the elderly in Ghana?
I'll do exactly that, Mr. Chair. I know that that bill is one of the bills that has to be laid before the House. I'll do exactly that. Thank you.
Having been Supervisory Minister for Procurement and noting that procurement is the most veritable source of corruption, what advice do you have if we have to improve our procurement regime or legislation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, if we want to improve on our legislation on procurement and our procurement practices as a country, I strongly believe that we should go the way the emerging economies are going, which is that procurement should be distinct and different and have a new outlook and legal framework different from finance. Mr. Chair, all economies in the third world countries usually place procurement under finance. But finance itself, as a ministry or as a department, itself undertakes procurement. So it is like being a judge in your own court. So what is being happening now in advanced countries is that they are creating a new ministry. I know it exists in Canada, where procurement is giving a distinct function, a distinct expenditure to run so that all the checks and balances can be effectively undertaken. Thank you.
Chairman, my last and the one is just a commentary to wish my colleague well. The last is school feeding. The caterers across the country are very, very unhappy. They want assurance that they will be paid and paid on time. There are other schools, both rural and urban, that are still seeking to join.
that worthy initiative. What do you have to say to this?
Mr. Chair, I give the committee my utmost assurance, like I did earlier, that we'll look into it and do the needful. Thank you.
Chairman, I take it that our colleague is excited abandoning the legislative organ as deputy leader and want to have a new life in the executive to support the president in promoting gender and children affairs. Chairman, I know that in Ghana, there is still underrepresentation of women because of our patriarchal nature as a society. She must accept the challenge and lead the process of social transformation. I wish you well and I congratulate you.
Thank you, Leader.
Okay. Adwoa, you have stated on your CV boldly, hometown as Antibakwai. You have declared it openly. Oh, I'm happy. And you know, within the Kwai municipality, there's a town called Kokofu. And there's a saying that Kokofu ball, unenima impossible. That, so today, my sister is coming. So don't tell everybody, I'm asking you, our school feeding quantities. We'll discuss it later. But more importantly, there's only one old people's home in Ghana, and its state is situated at the Kwai. It needs some improvement, rehabilitation, and support. It has become my personal charitable location. I want you to put it on your record that you pay attention to the old people's home at the Kwai, the only one in the country, and it is situated there. So take note and let's pay attention to that. On that note, the other children's homes that need support, I'm sure you attend to them. And on that note, I congratulate you on your nomination and be assured that Ahanzunia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I assure you.
We'll support you. But on that note, we thank you for attending upon the House.
So those without me, they will know you.
You are discharged.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
If we continue like this, we can do another one, the country. Anyway, so thank you. Let's keep to the schedule we have started. We'll rest early. Thank you so much. Gentlemen, we'll meet tomorrow.